Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the penultimate round, round 19 of Season 1 2024 of Endurance for Amateurs. Tonight is at the famous Circuit de la Sarthe, or as we all know, Le Mans, and rain is possible from start to finish, and I was just looking at the radar. It is definitely coming. You can see a giant wall of rain on the radar. We'll see how long it lasts, but it's been extra foggy out here tonight, and tonight's race is brought to you by Ninja Botanicals and AlienAwards.net. Coming up is a 90-minute race with GTD and GTP class cars. Last week saw Jay Smart earn another victory in the GTP class in dominant fashion as Nick Terrell rose to second after again starting in last. Paul Skip did take the third step on the podium with Nick Paletti in fourth, but the incident points tell a more interesting story. With 5 incidents apiece, Nick Terrell and Nick Paletti earned 4 safety points, but Paul Skip totaled 13 incidents, netting him 0. So despite the podium, we come into the night's race with Nick Terrell back on top, 4 points back to Paul Skip, and just 1 more point back to Nick Paletti. GTDA saw another huge win for Ken Hubert, number 15 of the season, with Tyler Langenberg and Travis Bell finishing on the podium, their 7th and 2nd on the season respectively, but only 6th and 7th overall in the GT3 race. Huber has a whopping 736 points, 152 ahead of Langenberg in second, and 210 ahead of Travis Rowe in third. However, a mere 2 points separates Jeff McDonald, Travis Bell, and Aaron Claybaugh in the fight for 5th. GTDB saw a win on season debut for Andrew McMurray, who flew through the field after getting up to speed in the initial phase. James Foreman hung on to second as the only driver in the race with 0 incidents, and Jesse Coffey got another podium, finishing 4th overall in the race. Foreman holds the lead at 600 points, 39 ahead of Jesse Coffey, and most likely has sealed the championship away. Jack Lucas sits only 7 back from Coffey in third, with Nathan Westland not an impossible to overcome, 20 more points back. So as you can see from some of the shots in the background here, tonight is a little bit foggy right now, and do my best to escape those camera views if we can't see anything. But really, there's not a lot of camera views that can see a lot with what's going on. So the drivers have 10 minutes. This is a long track for the GT3s. Even a good time would be just barely cracking underneath 4 minutes. Ken Huber had the fastest time during qualifying, or during practice, by a whole second, which is not impressive. But of course, when you consider the length of this track, of course, 1 second is a little bit easier to gain than on a shorter one. This is about 3 times as long as a normal circuit would be. So try to keep that in mind with any sort of gaps. We have lots of sectors to really nail through here. And luckily for Paul Skip there, who of course lost out last race in some safety point issues, this racetrack is very hard to get some incidents on. You have to really have collisions with other drivers or just go spinning off the track. They will serve lots of slowdown penalties. We will see a lot of that during this race. Places like Tertre Rouge, places like Maison Blanche, lots of common places on this track to earn some penalties, but generally will not give you a 1x off track. So it's very key for these drivers to keep low counts. And right now, Paul Skip is finishing up his first lap. The drivers would have started just behind the finish line so that they have as much time as possible to put in some laps in, but they're only going to have 2 chances. So these first laps that we see here are going to be ultra important because only 2 shots at this, not the 4 laps that they normally have time to be able to do. Right now, Jay Smart has the first time on board. Right behind him is Paul Skip, just 2 tenths. I mean, 2 tenths over this amount of distance is absolutely incredible how close they are. That's just the first lap. We saw them trading some purple sectors through that section. The GT3s will be coming up in just a few seconds to be placing their first times in. Again, they'll be happy to be under that 4-minute mark. I don't think a lot of drivers will be able to do that unless they prove me wrong, but it's a very difficult task to undertake. That corner right there, Tertre Rouge, a difficult one for the drivers. And yeah, already, first 2 times, just over 4 minutes for 2 drivers that were very fast in the practice session. So tires not really up to temperature, I don't think, on that first attempt. And should maybe be a little bit better on the second. But of course, you don't have the tires up to temp, but then you drive it for 4 minutes in anger and can really take something out of the peak life of those tires. We'll see how the second laps look for these guys. We're really just going to see these first times start to come in. Nick Terrell's time, 10 seconds off. John Kelly, 20 seconds off. So mistakes made there because they are not that much off on pace, clearly. Nick Terrell, I believe, had the fastest time in practice, actually. So he'll be looking to try to make an improvement. And he's the only GTP in this 7-car field that is not using the Porsche. So we'll see how he does here in this race. Nicholas Paletti, I just saw a couple purples there, and he moves up to first by a couple tenths with a 3:27.8. Sheldon Rosenbaum still has that first place spot. Langenberg in third. Roger Schenk right now, the B-class pole sitter. Again, still another lap to go. Paul Skip, a couple green sectors and a purple sector, so times, at least for Skip here, and possibly the rest of the field, may fall as long as they really hook up this final lap and don't make any mistakes. We do have actually Terry Kiger Jr. He did not think that he was going to be able to make it for this race, but it looks like he was able to at least join in the session in the blink of time here. Don't know if he'll be able to put a qualifying time in. Again, of course, a legend down there in the GT3, so his points are not scored regardless. Rosenbaum here. He is the leader right now for the GTDs. Making his way through the second slowdown down on the Unandier and swinging around the final kind of kink there on the straight. A lot of corners to master on this track, but most of the track is that straight. The Unandier, sometimes called the Mulsanne. A little bit of a confusion, of course. In French, they call it the Unandier. The Mulsanne is actually what they call after this hairpin here. This is the Mulsanne corner that Sheldon Rosenbaum is making his way through, and they call this section the Mulsanne. As they head down into Indianapolis, one of the toughest turns on this track. And drafting, while not super effective in some of the other races, is going to be key in this one for the drivers to actually stay with each other. Some of these laps, some of these GTP cars are finishing their second lap here, and we're going to see where this all stacks up. Just one purple sector for Paul Skip, one purple sector for Jay Smart. That's just his first, but still improvements across the entire lap, it looks like. What are these times going to look like, and really whose way is it going to go through Ford, through the Cours de Mont? And we're waiting for Jay Smart's time to come across the board. Does not go out wide there. Jay Smart improves to a 3:26.4 with Paul Skip at the exact same time, but 6 tenths back. So a decent gap that Jay Smart now has in front. Ken Huber has lots of purples down there, 3 purple sectors so far in this lap, looking to improve even more. He's coming up to one of the toughest sections of the track. He's going to be heading his way left and then right and then left and then right as you go through Porsche, Pont, Karting, Corvette. Just trying to keep the car on the limit. The GTPs should be able to handle this section a little bit better. GT3's really hanging on to the tires and the aero that they've got through there. And then the last thing that you really got to avoid as far as off tracks is right here. Maison Blanche, very easy to go out wide here to the right. Those yellow rumble strips there, you will get penalized. Or through Corvette, excuse me. There was Maison Blanche. And he's going to head down into just 2 final chicanes. Very fast. Shouldn't be too much of an issue as long as the drivers have practiced them. Not a ton of time to be gained, but Ken Huber looks like he's going to at least provisionally be able to take back that first place spot. What is Rosenbaum's time going to look like? He's improved across the board, and he is 1 second down. Huber breaks into the 359s, and Langenberg replaces Rosenbaum there in second. James Foreman has a lot of improving sectors here. He is not able to get up to Roger Schenk's time. Nicholas Paletti coming out a little bit later than the rest of the drivers. He has made his way to first in the GTPs with a 3:26.3, just a single tenth over Jay Smart across this long of a lap. Absolutely razor thin between some of these drivers, but a pole position nonetheless right now for Paletti. I don't think, well, I guess Nick Terrell, we do have his improved time, but he is slower on those first 2 sectors. May have made a mistake on that first lap. What is this time going to be? It is only a 3:27.6, 1.3 seconds back. Probably not where he wants to be after his performance at practice, but plenty of time, of course, in this race to make up for that. Still some drivers coming across the line, and a lot of drivers not putting the time. Jesse Coffey's one who hasn't. He is not going to put a time in. Rosenbaum looking to improve his time. And he is not, actually, never mind. He is, so I think maybe a little bit broken down there. Yeah, it is. Terry Kiger Jr. will not be able to finish his lap, it doesn't look like, with a lot of drivers. And no, he will not. Are any drivers driving? There's Tony Watson with 1 second remaining. He crosses the line. That lap, maybe not counting. We saw him cross the line with time to go, but it looks like that time did not count for Tony Watson. How cruel. We will take a break for this warm-up session, and we'll be right back with you. All right, we're back, and with our official results for the start of this race, Nick Paletti with just his second pole position on the season, followed just a 10th back by Jay Smart, Paul Skip in third with Nick Terrell in fourth, Paul Boyle fifth, Ryan Jeevan in sixth, and John Kelly in seventh. Ken Huber takes another pole for the GTDA class. That's pole number 13. Tyler Langenberg in second, Sheldon Rosenbaum in third, with Aaron Claybaugh in fourth. Following them, Travis Rowe, fifth, and Roger Schenk gets a first pole position on the season. Sixth different pole sitter for GTDB. Travis Bell in seventh, Foreman in eighth, Joshua Doty in ninth, and Dan Barnett rounds out the top 10. Following them, Cody Height, I believe, on debut here tonight. Nathan Westland, Jack Lucas, Andrew McMurray, Jesse Coffey, and Terry Cowger Jr. And following them, Mauricio Parada, Todd Schneider, Greg Holland, and Tony Watson. Most of those drivers at the end of that field not having put a time in. And actually, before we get to this race form, I'll show you just a peek behind the curtain, what we're looking at in the forecast world. This is what we can see here. I know it's a bit of a peek, but you can see at the top left of the screen, bottom right of the screen, you can see that radar coming in. So rain is on the very edge. We're getting very close to that coming into the track, and it looks like a mega wall of water. We'll see how long it lasts with these accelerated time frames, but it does look like rain should be coming here tonight. Very exciting. We had just a sprinkling that we had a couple weeks ago in Barcelona. Had just some scares last week in Interlagos, but nothing actually came down. But this might be a little bit different here today. John Kelly looks like he is going to be starting in the pits. Not sure if there was an issue there. We have just a little bit of time, actually. This is what happened to Kelly. So this is, they're on the outlap. And maybe still had something that he had set up wrong. I mean, it's fixed setup, so I'm not sure what happened, but he pulled off and decided to start from the pits. Jay Smart, is he starting from the pits as well? He's down 4 positions, might be in the pits, or I don't see him out here on the track, so we missed him. But through the Dunlop chicane is the no passing opportunity. After that, all bets are off. Drivers can make any moves they want. We'll see if anything happens early. I mean, the draft is going to really allow, even if you don't take Tertre Rouge incredibly well, it's definitely going to keep you in the hunt as you come down the straight into the first and second slowdowns. I think last time we were here, we had the classic, the historic layout with no slowdowns, but this time we've got the 2. And you can hear the jet fly over just above as Nicholas Paletti is going to take the green flag for the start of this race. Waiting on that for come. Drivers behind going through at Courtemont, and Paletti has led the field off, so he's going to go through this Dunlop chicane. Passing opportunities are going to be early. Dan Barnett may have had an incident already. Started up there in 10th. He is now down to the back of the field. We'll see what that was after we get through this first section through the Dunlop chicane. Now heading through Curb Dunlop, and Paletti still leads them ahead. The top 3 have really separated themselves, with Jay Smart nowhere to be found. Not sure what happened to him in his race, but the top 3 of our championship are numbers 1, 2, and 3. Not in that order necessarily. Through Tertre Rouge, and this is where you can easily get a slowdown as you go wide there. Won't get an incident point, but Paletti swings it through there. Skip not too far back. A bit of a drop back to Paul Boyle and Ryan Jeevan. No moves made in the GT3s yet, with the exception of Dan Burnett's incident, which we will take a look at right here. This was immediately after the green flag through a Courtemont, and just... Oh, I was actually looking at the wrong car there. Take a look at that again, and yeah, just hit that curb too hard. Interesting move to happen. Couple moves that we have on the straight now. Coming into the first slowdown, and that's Jay Smart picking his way through the field, so he did start from the pits. I don't know what happened to Jay Smart in this race, but Ken Huber's still leading just ahead of Tyler Langenberg. It's going to be hard to keep track of all these close gaps that we're going to have. Terry Geiger Jr.'s made up a couple spots already. And Jack Lucas may have had an incident himself. He's lost 4 positions. So you can see him right there. He seems to be undamaged, so still going all right with a new livery on that car as well. Nathan Westland made up 2 spots already. Still fighting for some more, trying to get ahead of Cody Height right now. Will he be able to get around? He's on the left side of your screen. Cody Height on the right in that BMW. Into the second slowdown. Better line for Cody Height. Can Westland make it happen on the inside? He's not got the speed in the first part. May actually be a little bit worried about behind. Does he have I don't think he does. He doesn't have the pace to stay ahead of James Foreman, who's going to sail back ahead. So Westland now down to Andrew McMurray, too. So a mistake to make that move when he did, clearly, as he's now lost out to 2. Maybe now another to Jesse Coffey on the inside into the difficult corner of Arnage. Or Molzon, excuse me. Nothing doing there so far. Oh, but he gets slowed down by Foreman, and he's going to lose the spot. Jesse Coffey now on the run to try to get up another spot. Will he be able to make anything happen? As the fog is starting to dissipate, luckily, so some of these camera angles a little bit more visible. Paul Boyle towing to the pits, and something happened to him. Unsure. We'll check that later. Travis Bell close right now with his competitor of Roger Shank on the inside, trying to go around the outside of Indianapolis, and the rain is coming down right now. Look at that through the windshield. Are these drivers going to switch to a wet tire? The rain came on lap 1. How disastrous could this be for some of these drivers? Westland loses another spot. Was up 2. Now he's down 1. Now he might be down 2. He is. He's down 1 to Terry Geiger Jr. Again, won't be counted, but still a weird start for Westland, who had a lot of momentum and lost a lot. Very wide for drivers back there. Again, no shame given to that, given the conditions that they're under right now. We'll see how long it takes for the track to get truly wet. I think right now the drivers just need to be cautious. We're not really seeing any wetness actually sitting on the track. But in the GTPs, Ryan Jeevan, I was wrong that Nick Terrell was the only driver in that Acura. Ryan Jeevan actually operating that as well. He did join the session a little bit late. So, but he's sitting there in 4th right now due to the whatever happened to Jay Smart. I don't know. I don't know why he started from the pits like he did after getting 2nd in qualifying, but maybe we'll find out about that later. Meanwhile, here was the incident for Paul Boyle. Sweet. Not a great view there. Here's Paul Boyle coming down the back stretch through Curb to Golf, I believe, and into Indianapolis, and just completely lost control of the car and totaled that before he could even get around to the finish line one time. I mean, that's right about when the rain started to come down, so drivers were probably not prepared already. That is really coming down right now. Westland got another spot back at least, and some gaps are actually starting to form in the GTD field, which is a little bit strange. Maybe drivers a little bit more cautious with the rain, but generally with the long straights here, it's easier for the drivers to stay close with each other. Now through Tertre Rouge, and Langenberg has not given Huber any room to breathe. This is one of the closest battles on the entire track, and this is for the GT3 win right now. Top 6 drivers in GTD-A, with only a few out of it. Tony Watson, one of them, who put in a qualifying time. We saw him cross the line, but fortunately somehow didn't count. Jack Lucas making a spot on James Foreman. Lucas has had an up and down start to this race, but with that move on Foreman, gets his way through a little bit, and that is Mauricio Parada so close to the back, and Lucas just sending it down the inside. That is a brave move to try to pass into Tertre Rouge, but he does it with a bumper that says, "Don't kill me, Jay." But had to actually deal with that as Jay was making his way through the field at the start of the race. But Mauricio Parada has now made his way past Jack Lucas. Jack Lucas actually getting it back. We're on board with Lucas. Parada just behind him. 4/10, 3/10. Will he be able to make anything happen? You see some of these battles starting to shake out. And actually at the front of the field, first off, Paul Skip just a couple tenths back from Paletti as they head through Indianapolis. And now heading up to Arnage. But the top 4 of GTD has started to close up. It was already close between Langenberg and Huber, but it is now close between Huber all the way back through Rosenbaum and Claybaugh. So this is getting a little bit more interesting. Nick Terrell not that far back. And again, fuel strategy much more difficult to make happen on this track because going an extra lap means so much more fuel saving to make happen. So I'm very curious to see if that actually matters. It may rain enough where that doesn't matter and the drivers have to pit for some wet tires anyway. But right now, still not seeing anything actually pull up on the track. With the accelerated time, I wonder if that does help that not happen. Foreman up a spot, and Foreman's actually down 8 from where he started. He has had a difficult start to this race. He loses another spot now to Tony Watson, so down to 9 spots. And Dan Barnett, the only driver to lose more, and his was unfortunately at the worst possible time to have an incident. Ooh, Coffey very close with Terry Cowger Jr. right now. Cowger has charged his way through this field. Did not put a qualifying time in, so we did not. Oh, and that's a spin. That's a spin by Terry. Jesse Coffey avoids it, slows down a little bit. Westland avoids it. Oh, and that is a horrible, unfortunate incident for Jack Lucas. We saw that in the background. Lucas just trying to anticipate a car being on track, went ultra wide, way off track, and unfortunately that was the wrong move to make. That's exactly where Terry put his car. Here's Lucas's point of view, and just no time to react. He knew that there was a car. He thought that going off track was going to be the safest thing for him, and generally it would be the case, but he is now going to limp back to the pits this early on in the race. And a sad start to Jack Lucas's race. And a driver that is, again, currently battling very close with Jesse Coffey for that second place spot in GTB. James Foreman's probably got it wrapped up, but only 7 points between the two, and Coffey up in 10th is going to make this race a little bit hard to swallow. Huber sets the fastest lap of the race for the GT3 class. Still not much separating behind. Claybaugh even closer to Rosenbaum, and actually going to be making a move here into Dunlop. Claybaugh sends it and gets it completed. No battle by any. Oh, and we're getting some spray. We're getting some spray on the cars. Still not to puddle time, but you can see right there in some of those higher G turns, maybe some of the braking zones, we're starting to get some stuff kicked off these cars. This is going to be really exciting. We have not seen this in a race format yet, so we don't know what drivers are going to excel in these kind of conditions and what's going to cause. We honestly don't have a ton of crazy crashes. Roger Shank's in the pits, Josh Doty's in the pits, but those seem to me, it looks like they just drove in the pits maybe to get some wet tires. So we do have some pit stops, and I don't think they're actually for damage. So some strategy call potentially. It can long lap, so if you don't come into the pits and it gets really rainy over the next 4 minutes, that is going to be a big difference in conditions. You have to really predict the strategy well here when it comes to weather, and it's going to be very interesting to see this play out just because we do not know what the correct answer is. Driver who's made his way through a lot of spots so far, Mauricio Parada. We've seen him make some brave moves. He's trying to get another one here, and no, that is just got the commentator's curse. Wanted to make the move on Andrew McMurray, got too close into the braking zone, got a little bit spooked by the closeness of the drivers. But even that won't get you an off track. It will give you a slowdown, and he'll have to serve that while also, of course, losing all that time to the drivers in front. Tony Watson may be able to get him. Heading back up front, Rosenbaum still close with Claybaugh. Those raindrops really hitting the windshield, not so much that you're getting some spray on the straights and you can't see the cars in front, but enough to be worrying these drivers, certainly into some of these scary braking zones like the Mulsanne hairpin. Ryan Jeevan with an incident in the GTPs. I mean, the GTPs, I'm shocked that they haven't had more incidents. Look at that high speed, scary spin through Porsche. Lucky to have that amount of runoff because most other tracks, he's just going right into the wall there. But able to survive and keep going. Currently in 5th as Jace Martin has got his way around. Jack Lucas may have had another incident. This just happened for Jack Lucas. It's coming into, I believe, the first slowdown. Yeah, okay, so yeah. He'd already gave up. Unfortunate race for Jack Lucas. And the rain continues that all the way down. You just see back there, just behind these guys in what was Travis Rowe's car, all the way down that little straight between Indianapolis and Arnage, kicking up some water. So some of these low points getting some water, making it a little more difficult. Westland, who has had the ultimate up and down race, is now up to the back of Jesse Coffey. May be able to make a move here, as he had looked like he had a better exit through Arnage. Barely even see his car there behind the BMW. Will he make a move into Porsche? Doesn't have a lot more time to make something happen. Still following. We haven't seen any bump drafting yet, but maybe drivers are a little more scared to do that in these conditions. No move made here into Porsche. And a passing opportunity does not really open up until you start the next lap, unless you're going to be really brave or the driver in front makes a pretty big mistake. And we've seen plenty of mistakes in this area. This is the hardest part of the track. especially in these kind of conditions. But that also is why it's so difficult to try to make a move. And that was pretty wide for Westland. That may be a slowdown. I need to be rebriefed on the rules of off tracks there, but that was beyond that green and white curb. He's not taking a slowdown yet, so maybe nothing happening for him there. Through the Ford chicane into the Record-a-Mont chicane. Oh, and that goes a little bit, nearly loses control of the car right as we get on board with them. Just taking a little bit too much speed. Cody Height, first driver from the top 10 coming into the pits, definitely coming for some wet tires. That is the slowdown Westland is serving for sure, as Andrew McMurray flies on by. Looking back up to the front, Langenberg is as close as he's been to Ken Huber. Can really not afford to do anything else with how close Claybaugh is on behind. Rosenbaum, the closest to him going off track there. I think he stayed just within to not earn a penalty through Tertre Rouge. And now onto the Unodier. Is Aaron Claybaugh going to use this draft? He is. He's already pulling out before the first slowdown. And he unfortunately loses the draft that Langenberg now gets off of Ken Huber, who is going to win into this first slowdown. Right now, Aaron Claybaugh surges ahead as Langenberg just lets off a little bit. I think he had already kind of accepted defeat for that section there. But can he make something happen into the second slowdown? Back into the Onodier. This is a public road as well, as those lines are there for a reason. Says when it's not used for a race, this is part of the French public road system. And it makes the track section there a lot more bumpy. I mean, they're not really doing anything too difficult handling-wise, but Aaron Claybaugh is going to try to use this and head to the outside lane. Huber, very defensive line, still comfortably ahead, but definitely aware of Aaron Claybaugh behind. And it actually looked like somehow Huber got the better exit despite being the guy that was going in fast, coming out slow. Claybaugh actually lost some time through that chicane. Still close, by the way, in the GTPs, just 8/10 between Paletti and Skip. We'll keep our eye on that, but not as close as this battle that we have right here. Just 1 second. Just 1 second separating the top four for this. And these are all in the same class as well. These guys are all compared to each other. And like I mentioned earlier, Aaron Claybaugh in a very tight battle right now with a couple drivers in the A class. So he needs to get as many points as he possibly can. Him and Travis Bell and Aaron Claybaugh, Travis Bell and Jeff McDonald, all in a tight scrap. I don't know. It doesn't look like we have Jeff McDonald here today, but Travis Bell still having a good race of his own back there in 6th. Interested to see if any of these drivers who have pit are finding better pace or not. We really don't have enough time. I mean, even drivers who have already pit for wets, I don't even know if they've finished a lap yet. Jay Smart, something with an incident here. I think this is, that is through the first section of the Descente de la Chapelle and the S to Tertre Rouge, crashed into that wall, and I think that he tows to the pits after this. Looks like that is the case. So unfortunately, actually he's out. So Jay Smart out of this race after that incident through the S. Claybaugh so close. Can he make anything happen on Ken Huber here? He's tailing the bumper, but hasn't been able to make any true lunge for the lead yet. Josh Doty gets ahead of Cody Height. Cody Height losing another spot. I do believe that we saw Cody Height come in for wets. He is losing time hand over fist all the other drivers. I don't know if it was he may have had an incident, actually. Let's make sure nothing happens here into this chicane. Oh, and a pit for Aaron Claybaugh. Here was Cody Height's incident into the Molzon hairpin. And car just not gripping. And he's on, I think, like I said, given his timing for his pits, I think he's on those softs, or the wets, excuse me. So the wet's still not the best pick. And now that I'm not seeing rain come down, I don't know if it's even the right pick to switch to. Drivers still seeming to handle the car okay up front. There's really going to be no way for us to tell what type of tire they switch to, but I just have to imagine that the timing of this pit means that they're at that. Let's see if we have any idea, if we can see the tread of the tire. Can't see it in any of these. They are definitely getting tire changes, and it's only 17 minutes in this race. I mean, we do still see a lot of spray coming out on that track, but I don't think any more rain is coming down. It doesn't look like it, at least. Could look a little bit different in the cockpit. Okay, there we go. Yes, it does look different in the cockpit. So maybe don't trust the cameras. Oh, that was a scary moment for Claybaugh as he was all on those curbs, exiting the pits on what might be wet tires and nearly losing control of the car right in the get-go. Langenberg and Huber did not pit. On Langenberg having some issues with connection here. Can't even see him. See, he's back. Okay, so lost a little bit of time through that first slowdown. Rosenbaum losing actually a lot of time. Did not pit like Claybaugh did. I actually thought he did, given that he was out of the picture. So I don't know. I don't think any big incident, but we did lose him from that battle of four. Meanwhile, in the GTP, some traffic is helping Paletti catch back up now. Just 3/10 as they head down the Chapelle into the Est de Tertre-Rouge. And these guys are just handling this weather so well. I mean, we saw Jay Smart right there have that incident, and these guys still burning through that section in what are very difficult cars to handle in the wet. It's something that's been acknowledged by iRacing and something that iRacing is planning on working on to get these cars a little bit more usable. Langenberg still having some issues with that connection. Hopefully does not get booted out. Has not had it happen to him this season, at least. He's had some maybe close calls. Into the first slowdown. Paletti's still going to be chasing Skip. And it still seems like the brakes are working fine on these guys who have not stopped, unless they started on wets that I was unaware of. It seems like it's good enough, but I feel like you would really see people flying all over the place if there were people starting on slicks and people starting on wets and then not pitting for those. So I have to think that they started on those slicks and they're still on that. But we'll see as we continue through this, and I wish we had a display to show what kind of tires they were on. Unfortunately, not something available in SDK currently, but maybe something that'll be added soon. Down back to Nodier into the last hairpin at the end of the straight, and it looks like there was an incident ahead of them by Dan Barnett. Looks like he's got going again. I'm not going to involve them, but this was the incident for Barnett, just into that hairpin, just ahead of those two GTPs, just a little bit wide. Couldn't quite get it slowed down. Really not too out of control or losing too much time. But that is one that will get you an incident for sure. Going off track. Not a big section of the cockpit window that really gets wiped away from the rain. Not something I've really ever noticed with the GTPs, but not a lot of visibility that's getting cleared up for those guys. Makes things even more difficult. And what can sometimes be a little bit of a difficult visibility car. Paletti should have just followed Skip through on the inside. I think Foreman was letting him do it, and now losing a second and a half back. We now flip back over to the GT3s, heading into the final two chicanes, and still just 3/10 separating the two. And if we look at their last lap, they're crossing this line, and they, let's see. First off, best laps are in the 4 minutes. They are now, that was a 4:12 for Ken Huber. And Tyler Langenberg, not that time, not counting because he was not visible enough. But 4:12, so 12 seconds off the pace for Ken Huber. That shows what the rain is doing. It may kind of look like they're still driving the same. They are not. It is not the same conditions out there. Even from the start of the race where we saw rain coming down on lap 1, still 12 seconds slower than it was at the very start for Huber. But meanwhile, if we look at Aaron Claybaugh, he put in a 4:11. So if he actually did go for wet tires, he did put in a faster lap than Ken Huber on that last one. We've got some more drivers coming in. Andrew McMurray, Tony Watson, and Nathan Westland. And Tony Watson, right before stopping for his pit there, up 14 spots. We'll see where he is when this whole pit cycle makes his way through. But 14 spots gained is absolutely ludicrous. It's going to lose some here, of course. But some drivers still not having come into the pits yet. Still so close between Langenberg and Huber. Does Langenberg maybe not even have the desire to make his way around? He was a 10th and a half into the braking zone, backed off to 4/10 before that happened. Paletti catching up massively to Paul Skip. I just saw that time just melting away, and I think Skip may be making a mistake into Porsche or Pont. Wasn't able to capitalize that, Paletti, but he was able to he was able to catch back up. Now back down to like a second. It's very difficult. Aaron Clabaugh just lost 2 spots. He was putting in, like I said, a decent lap times, but maybe the wet tire's still not. Actually, Aaron Clabaugh's last lap was a 5-minute 1 second. That has to include the pit stop, I would think. His pit lap was lap 4. It may not have included this pit stop. I'll try to keep an eye on that as we go on, but hopefully not that far off the pace with those wet tires. I just noticed we saw Clabaugh lose a spot to Dan Burnett and Travis Rowe, and he's now back to 7th. Dan Burnett, despite that incident on lap 1, is up to 6th. Travis Rowe in 5th. Jay Smart did not actually leave the race, but he's maybe now going to do it. We see another incident for him here. This is through the second slowdown on the acceleration zone of it, and the car just slips. And I'm surprised we're not seeing it more often. Actually, I think the car may have got away without any serious damage there. Jesse Coffey actually... Oh, there, yeah, because he goes through the pits. Excuse me. But Mauricio Parada getting Josh Doty here. Mauricio Parada on the right side, Josh Doty on the left side. Josh Doty, you haven't seen him for a couple races. Rejoining here for a very difficult one for sure. And Parada just swings around the outside just a little bit more overspeed to be able to get in front, but was able to fully close in front of him. Just right there as he crosses with almost no time into the first slowdown on the straight. Nice move there. Jesse Coffey technically passing Jay Smart. Coffey's in the pits too with the damage, so that must be as he's towing here. And Tony Watson back out on track, up 10, still up 10. He started in 20th. We should have been higher than that because we saw him coming, like I said, with the time. And a little bit wide there for Paul Skip through Indianapolis. And that weird line that he took there through Arnage, actually not weird. That's not weird. It's just we haven't seen it yet. He's actually hunting for a bit of an off line. He's cooling down the tires a little bit. We have not seen this really happen at all. Because of the light amount of rain we've had over the last couple weeks. But he was taking an alternate line there, and it was not a mistake. It was to cool these wet, if he has wet tires, or it could be just cooling off so it must have been starting on wets. It's hard. I'd love to know. I'd love to have something to figure that out. Nathan Westland with an incident. What happened to him here? Coming down into which, not exactly sure where he's at there. Loses control of the car. Oh, that is Arnage, I believe. And Roger Shank's going to get by as he gets back going. So still close between these two. No move made. And again, this is 1 point separating these two in the standings. They are Paul's 4 points back from Nick Terrell. Paletti's 5 points back, but just one single point between these two. They come up on some traffic here. When an incident for John Kelly. He maybe had an incident there at the end of the lap. It looks like he's all right. Didn't lose too much time. Oh, and Tyler Langenberg just passed Ken Huber. Oh, and Ken Huber is backwards. Ken Huber has had an incident. Was there potentially contact, or did he just lose control of the car? That's the Tertre Rouge. What happens to Ken here? Through Tertre Rouge, he's well ahead and just slips on that curb. We saw Aaron Clabaugh. Oh, and nearly an incident for Paul Boyle as well. They did collide. He needed to really hold his brakes there. Ken, unfortunately, focusing a little bit more on the unfortunate incident and not those brakes. So Ken Huber is probably going to have a meatball for that, as well as some incident points. Yeah, that car is not driving okay. He's actually already pulling off to the side. He's going to tow, and that is going to be one long tow. We may not even see him back in this race. We'll have to see. But a difficult moment for Ken Huber as he went over that curb. And like I said, we saw Aaron Clabaugh so sketchy on that right out of the pits. And that is exactly what happened there through Tertre Rouge, the highest G corner probably on this track. That's just a guess, but it certainly feels like it in the car at least. So difficult to keep it in the bounds. And we're seeing Barnett come through right there, and he just kind of just touched the curb a little bit. I think probably avoiding it, at least with the entire car, is going to have to be what you do. Parada and Shank battling here. This is on board of the Parada as Shank is just getting past. So much faster for Parada there. Are they on the same tires? Hard to tell. And John Kelly nowhere to go through this first section. Could have probably gone up the inside there. Nathan Westland lurking in the background in 13th, down one. Again, just what a up and down race he's had. Dan Barnett with a bit of an incident there. Oh, and Paul Skip. Paul Skip has had an incident. Leading right behind Sheldon Rosenbaum into the Mulsanne hairpin. What happens to him here? Just couldn't get it stopped. And Rosenbaum had a similar issue. And a crash between the two could have totally been avoided. And that gives Nicholas Paletti the lead in a bit of a silly incident that, Rosenbaum just getting a spin and now losing his entire front bumper for a driver that was running in second, still is in second, but is going to have to come into the pits for some damage immediately. I don't know if Paul Skip really had anything damaged on the car, but he's trying to make a move on Paletti. There's a crash in front. We just heard, who was that crash? That was Tyler Langenberg, the leader of the race for GTD. Right after Ken Huber had an incident through the Arnage hairpin, I think we lose Tyler Langenberg. You could hear the tires screeching and crashing into the wall. Does he hit the curb? He doesn't. He just aquaplaned. Was he on drives from the very start? So luckily he does get going with less damage than it sounded like. But everybody is struggling out there. Skip looked like he was just a little bit off track there as well. This has been an absolutely wild race so far. Afraid to even take my eyes away from it. Roger Shank keeping close with Nathan Westland, who's just behind Mauricio Parada. We saw Parada really fly by Roger Shank. Wonder if that was maybe a mistake that allowed that move to be made, because he's not fallen far back from this point. And yes, Ken Huber out of this race. So his unbroken, and wide for Parada. Can Westland make this happen? He's already ahead through that hard right-hander, and he's going to be able to pull a bit of a gap here as they head their way down the straight through Arnage. Arnage has been a difficult corner for a lot of these guys. Paletti coming into the pits, but Paul Skip staying out. Interesting. So we're just about that 1/3 mark. Will it mean a different type of tire? I don't know. But right now, it's Sheldon Rosenbaum and Travis Bell coming in the pits. Obviously, we expected Rosenbaum with the damage that he's got. So if it's on his schedule, then it's not so bad. And that was wide for Parada. That was wide for Parada and behind. It's going to allow Shank to catch up a little bit. Didn't crash there. And now Westland. Actually, excuse me. They were through the Mulsanne hairpin. That's where Westland really started to pull away. That was just now Indianapolis and Arnage that they made their way through. Important pits for drivers up front. The leader of the race in GTP and the second and third drivers for GTD, but the gaps are very large with some of these incidents. And actually, Aaron Claybaugh with an incident of himself. He's already looking like right there. He's barely driving straight. What happened to him? Let's even catch. Oh, here. Let's see if this actually just happened right after Tyler Langenberg's incident. Didn't catch it due to what else was going on through the Indianapolis curve. Big whack on the wall, and that completely borked his steering. And that is why we saw him crabbing down the... Oh, wrong replay there. So we saw him crabbing down that straight, well, just a little bit. And it looks like he must not be able to even hold on to the car. Yeah, just he's going to have to stop and tow. So this may be a game of who tows the least amount of times. The rain has been exciting, but it has been difficult. But some drivers have really... flourished in these conditions. Tony Watson right now is currently up 14 and trying to get up to a 15th spot into the top 5 overall. Tony Watson, a former champion, and only has been at a few races this year, but looking really strong here tonight. Again, Le Mans, of course, a track that lots of people have experience at, and maybe not in the rain necessarily. But props to James Foreman there in 5th as well, because he specifically said that he hoped it didn't rain because he didn't think that he would be very good, because he didn't practice in the rain at all. James Foreman, of course, did some practice, didn't do any of it in the rain, yet still up 3 from where he qualified up into 5th. Josh Doty just toe into the pits there as well. Is Tony Watson going to make a move? He's not trying anything there. Let's see here what happened to Josh Doty. This is through the opening. He's just all over. He doesn't have his rear wing. Comes from this incident here. This is through the final chicane of the Recordement, and he's spinning to the inside. I've never seen an incident like that, but that's what happens when you got the rain. All he did really was just knock the rear, and he's just struggling to get it going straight. Nathan Westland avoiding the car. And more incidents than I can keep up with. Tony Watson gets ahead of James Foreman down the straight. Must have had a better exit through the first slowdown into the second slowdown, comfortably ahead. Now Andrew McMurray trying to get that spot from James Foreman. Foreman still would be ahead of where he qualified, even if he gets past here. But then Jesse Coffey has had an incident of his own. Jack Lucas already out of this race, so Jesse Coffey's going to finish ahead of him, regardless of what happens. And maybe Jack Lucas kind of wishes he had stayed in, maybe knowing some of the incidents that Coffey has had. Because here was Jesse Coffey just a few moments ago, unable to get the car to go the right direction as heading through the Porsche curves. Luckily, keeping it out of that wall. But lost a fair amount of time in that section. Nicholas Paletti having his own incident. It just pit not that long ago. And a bit of a slow spin, careful to keep it out of the wall, but Nick Terrell got by on track there, which is he's kind of been lurking for a while, but now was able to actually get around, and now Paul Skip's in the pits, so we're going to see where Nick Terrell comes out in the overall standings. But Nick Terrell might be able to move his way into the lead of this race despite starting fourth and not having the greatest first stint. We're seeing rain still continuing to come down. And if you don't mind, switch to the... Turn the display off and check a look at the... Oh, that is... Oh, man. That is not just rain. That is more rain. That's heavier rain still to come. I think it's going to be wet until the absolute finish of this race. We're already, 35, 40 minutes in, and that looks like it is just going to continue to ramp up. This has been very exciting, and we were only expecting, I think, a 40% chance of rain at the highest point, which still was likely, but did not expect a rainstorm throughout the whole race. Right now, McMurray keeping it super close with Foreman, and Rosenbaum got Travis Rowe. I was just about to look at this because I thought the battle was going to happen soon. Did not think it was already going to be over. Rowe losing the spot to Sheldon Rosenbaum, and Paul Skip is ahead of Nick Paletti as he just came out of the pits and already has the pace on him. Nick Terrell is way down the road, 15 seconds ahead of Paul Skip now, but Paletti struggling to make his way through that first sector. Paul Skip flying through, coming right after coming out of the pits. Not a lot of time put in. Andrew McMurray maybe trying to get the move done here into Dunlop. Haven't seen a lot of drivers make a move into turn one. But yeah, there's no competition there from James Foreman. Foreman's still running well. And survival is the key to pace here today. We have another incident, now this time for Mauricio Parada, who has had some elements or some sections of this race with crazy pace through the Ford chicane and just took a little bit of a weird line, lost control of the car, will get going again. But Roger Shank was able to make his way around at that point. Now Parada right on the back of Shank trying to reclaim that spot into Dunlop. Is he going to try to go around the outside? Is he actually trying to make the move happen? Can he get it slowed down? Roger Shank gives him a little bit of room. That was a little scary for Parada, who looked a little bit out of control, but he actually gets the drive out of the Dunlop chicane, and he's ahead. That BMW, we've seen some good moves from it and a couple of other drivers in it. Right now, we've got Travis Rowe and Travis Bell in second and fourth, respectively, in that BMW, too. So, is maybe a good pick for some rainy races. But through Tertre Rouge, and Parada's going to stay ahead by quite a lot. That curb, a little bit of a scary moment. But now we are actually starting to get some gaps in the battles. Not a single battle on track. Oh, there we go. As I said, only one battle on track that's within a second, and this is 4 seconds. But if Nick Terrell actually wins this race, and we already know that Paul Skip has 4 incident points from that crash with Sheldon Rosenbaum, and I think Nicholas Paletti's already had a spin of his own. And Langenberg's car is all kind of beat up there. Is that still from that? Is that from that incident they had in Arnage? It's very possible, but it didn't seem like he hit it that hard to get that kind of damage. Either way, still leading the race by 35 seconds, Langenberg. Did he just... He just did. He did. I was like, I thought I heard something. Langenberg spun out back there and crashed again. He's still leading the race, but another incident for him. Now into Indianapolis. Again, such a hard section of the track, and we've seen a couple drivers lose it in just that way. But lucky to keep the rear wing away from that wall and not losing that. May not have a meatball. Because I think that in rainy conditions, I think he would probably prefer to just stick it out, given the gap that he's got. Although he did just lose 3 seconds there in like 1 second. So, I don't know. I mean, Travis Rowe continues to really cut into that lead for Langenberg. And as I say that, he has somehow lost a position to Sheldon Rosenbaum. Travis Rowe, this is what happens to him right when I say that he's catching up hand over fist on that gap to Tyler Langenberg, and this is what happens to him, and he just doesn't even brake. He just forgot what corner he was in. Sheldon Rosenbaum, who had an unfortunate incident earlier with Paul Skip, is back to second place. I don't really, I don't know who to follow or who to expect to do well here. I think every time I say somebody's name, they have a bit of an incident. But we're down 3 drivers in GTP. Ryan Jeevan, J Smart, Paul Boyle. Of course, our 3 contenders for the championship have not left this race. They would never dare to do so this late into the season when anything can happen. And this race is proven to be anything can happen. That spray is way more than we've seen anywhere else in the race. And again, the rain is just going to continue to intensify through this. Something is going a little bit funky with some of the timing tower there, so I apologize for that, and bear with it. But none of the battles too unbelievably close right now. This is the closest battle we've got. Pletty not making anything happen yet. But we're close to that halfway point. I think now is probably a safe time to take a quick break. Well, we'll be right back in just a few minutes, but I'll try to do my best to keep all this action here on screen. All right, we're back, and we're right in the middle of some action. Nicholas Belletti just got around Paul Skip. You take a look at that move there. Paul Skip not really that wide, but then trying to get back on track. Just a weird loss of traction, loss of speed through there, and Belletti just sails on through. Meanwhile, we saw incidents from Mauricio Parada and Jesse Coffey. Jesse Coffey right here in front of him. Really, the only thing going well about his race today is just that he's going to finish ahead of Jack Lucas, and really that's the most important thing on the season, but it has not been a fun race for him. And we also had another incident for Tyler Langenberg. His car is just absolutely screaming for mercy. He's limping this thing as long as he can. And another incident in that same section, almost probably the exact same incident that we heard earlier in the Arnage right-hander. Car just spun out to the left, hitting the wall. And Nicholas Belletti just had an incident. Nicholas Belletti just got by Paul Skip. I cannot keep up with this much stuff through the first sector of this racetrack. And just where we saw Jay Smart go off and have a bigger incident, he avoids the wall but loses the spot. Meanwhile, we also had another incident for Tyler Langenberg. He had just spun. And then now this is him stopped on track. And that was Rosenbaum getting through. So Rosenbaum is back to the lead of the race. I don't even think Langenberg can drive his car. Not in like an offensive way. Just I think his car is undrivable at this point. Look at the oscillations heading through Maison Blanche. And just a bit of a lazy incident. Travis Rowe, another driver who was up at the front of the field, also having his own incident now through Porsche, where we've seen a lot of drivers have some little quarter spins. We saw it from Aaron Claybot earlier. And Langenberg is in the pits. He is finally repairing that car. We're about at the halfway point. He shouldn't be that far off the strategy. Oh, man, we try to keep up with some stuff here. Dan Barnett having an off-track. Nathan Westland losing 10 seconds at an off-track. Another driver doing well. This is through Porsche, or not through Porsche, but is just a little bit past that through a Corvette. And lucky to not have that also end up worse. And, ooh, that was lucky there. He did seem to strike the wall, but the rear wing seems to be intact. Langenberg is on pit exit. He's coming out in 7th. And James Foreman right now, the only driver in the entire field who just has not made a pit stop. He must have started on wet tires. And if I'm not wrong, we saw him lose a lot of spots at the start of the race, I think. So maybe a bit of a strategy masterclass for James Foreman. But we have 3 guys there in the top 5 who have gained a few spots. Travis Bell up 5. Tony Watson up 17. He started dead last. And Andrew McMurray up 10. And Tony Watson in the podium spots now. And he's catching up, I think, to Travis Bell, too. He's been running faster than any of the other drivers across any of these laps. His last lap was a 4:25.29. The next closest driver was the driver that he does have in front, Travis Bell, 4:27. He's 2 seconds faster than anybody else on track. I mean, Tony Watson, he not only has second place as a possibility, with how much time is left in this race, he absolutely has a win potentially in the cards. If he's going to keep running 2 seconds faster than Sheldon Rosenbaum in front, there's got to be a little bit of fear there. But Watson in the Porsche, which has not been a popular car this race. We've only had 2 other drivers here in this race using it, and did not go well for them. Neither of them finishing here, Terry Carter Jr. and Greg Holland. Despite all the incidents, we're only out 5 cars in GT3, 3 cars in GTP. Not to say that all the drivers out here have not, for the most part, had some at least scary incident, but I think most of them kind of understanding that if it's going to happen to them, it's probably going to happen to everybody, and that's about what the story has been. It's been a quiet couple of minutes that we've had. It's not that the conditions are getting better. Maybe the driver's getting a little bit more used to it. But Nick Terrell with a monstrous 32-second lead right now to Paul Skip. Skip and Belletti were so clean at the start of the race, and then each had a bevy of mistakes or just some problems with the car in these conditions that we already saw happen. I don't think we've really seen happen to Nick Terrell at all in this race so far. So it's going to be really, really difficult to make that up without Terrell making a mistake. But anybody can make a mistake in these conditions, especially if it does continue to get worse. I do want to glance at that Yes, it is. Oh, man, it is going to get worse, and it is going to get a lot worse for a while. Paul Skip comes into the pits. Oh, and not in the normal way. Oh, that is the wrong one there. Paul Skip. Oh, and a huge crash, a massive crash. Is that through Tertre Rouge? Hard to tell exactly where that happened. But he toes to the pits after that. So Paul Skip is functionally out. He's out of this race. He's not returning. And John Kelly is going to take that spot for third. Paul Skip, I mean, dare I say, out of the championship with that kind of incident. He's not going to get any safety points. There's no way to do so if he is out of this race. And even if he did just finish that fourth, Paul Skip, who has led almost every single race, or led the championship in almost every single race this season, we may actually not have him winning the championship this late. Mauricio Parada losing a couple spots. Looks like he went a little bit wide. And that spray is continuing to intensify. James Foreman into the pits. Did he actually drive? Like, okay, there we go. We got a driver actually driving into the pits. No towing involved. Foreman did not, he has not pit once in this race. So this is going to be, ideally, his one pit stop, because I do not imagine it drying up, even if it stopped raining right now, unless the accelerated time increases the drying. But to go on the as far as leading the championship, I mean, not only has he led into almost every single race this season, Paul Skip, but he's also led 454 laps on the season. Next closest is Jay Smart at 298, Nicholas Piletti at 144, and Nick Terrell, who's currently leading this championship and will, as it stands, be leading by even more, is at 136. He's the fourth most led laps, and he still may come out with a championship lead. He'll get some more led laps with this race, of course, but not a lot of laps to get in this long circuit. James Foreman exits. Looks like he's going to exit ahead of Aaron Claybaugh in 8th place, as the gaps between positions are absolutely massive, with the exception of a few spots. Mauricio Parada here getting by Joshua Doty, maybe. He does seem to have the speed. He's just a half a tenth up on Josh Doty. Get that map back up. I don't know how that went away. Heading into Indianapolis, such a scary part of the track for so many drivers. Jesse Coffey, you could tell, was taking it so slow, and Mauricio Parada loses it through the second part. Good dodge by Josh Doty to not get involved in that. And no damage for either driver. A bit of a scary moment there. We see that moment from Josh Doty's perspective. Went a little bit wide just to get some visibility into the turn, and was not until right on the brakes that we saw any sort of clue that Mauricio Parada was going to lose control of that car. Joshua Doty back on it, and he gets that spot. Doty again is in a tight battle himself. Oh, and Mauricio Parada losing control again right as we go back on board with them. Lucky to survive that one. That was through Porsche. Probably is a slowdown for the amount of track cut there, excuse me. But Josh Doty actually, I think it was last week. Wasn't a close battle with Travis Rowe. Was not at last week's race, and also behind Travis Rowe here in this one. So I think that he's probably going to be relegated to finishing in fourth at the best. Drivers behind that could catch up: McDonald, Bell, and Claybaugh. And McDonald we do not have here today, but Bell and Claybaugh are two drivers in the race. Bell's currently in second, although Tony Watson continues to catch up a little bit. Watson not putting up the pace from before. Still was 2 seconds faster than Rosenbaum in the last lap. Oh, there we go. Tony Watson passed. Right, all I have to do is just bring it up. That was I didn't even see that coming. That was 1.2 seconds. So that must have been a mistake for Travis Bell into that last corner there of Arnage. And it's just been such a difficult corner for these drivers. I don't know why it's been so difficult. It's not typically a harrowing part of the track. Much more harrowing is the part right before Indianapolis, where we have seen a couple incidents, but must have gone wide there as Tony Watson moves his way through. Now 11 seconds, 11.8 seconds off of Rosenbaum, and again, was 2 seconds faster last lap. 27.6 for Tony Watson, and a 29.7 for Sheldon Rosenbaum. Rosenbaum inherited that lead with, of course, Ken Huber had a crash in front of him. Aaron Claybaugh had some incidents, and so did Tyler Langenberg. Had a good number of incidents. He's still in this race. He's still in 6th. Goes to show, the perseverance. Even if you have a bunch of demoralizing incidents, just staying in the race, you can still be pretty far up there. Hopefully, I'm not going to be cursing him. I keep seeing the out showing up next to him. That's just his connection issue, whatever's happening for him. Josh Doty keeping it close with Jesse Coffey right now. Really be able to make any move happen. Again, the idea of passing opportunities, passing zones, that is just out the window in these kind of conditions. Any turn is a passing zone in the wet. So, if you're brave enough, you could try to make something happen. In the dry, it's more clear, but you can just see Doty just needing to get some clear air. I mean, in wet and dry conditions, that would be ridiculous to even consider pulling out to the side like that. But he just needs to get some visibility for the corner into the second slowdown. And a little bit of a center line. Again, I say weird just because I've got my dry race brain on. Jesse Coffey taking a bit of a wetter line. Maybe just cool the tires a little bit. Not put too much damage on them. And in these GT3s, we haven't really seen kind of their endurance of the wet tires. What kind of level of wetness can they really go a full stint, a full 45 minutes? It does seem like that's what James Foreman was able to do. And Doty gets his way by into the Mulsanne hairpin. Really no fighting back from Coffey there. Nice move, a bit of a scary exit. He may lose the spot. Had a bad exit there, and yeah, Coffey has a nose ahead. We'll see who has the better top speed down the curb to Gulf into Indianapolis. I really hope they don't stay side by side into Indianapolis. That would maybe give me a heart attack. And yeah, Doty losing out just with a bad exit. I mean, it was not like raced bad. It just he was definitely losing control of the car a little bit. He is mighty close. He got a little bit of a draft. He's not going to send something there. This is where we saw Doty get around Parada. Parada had the spin right here in the second part of Indianapolis. No such thing happening to Jesse Coffey around this time. Aaron Claybaugh came into the pits for his second pit stop. Which is not something we often say in the GT3s, but it's happening here. Up at the front, Tony Watson closing down another second on Sheldon Rosenbaum, down to 10.5. We're 35 minutes to go. I mean, that's we're 15 laps in. Maybe we have maybe 9. Oh, and a spin by Jesse Coffey. That was, you could see that was telegraphed, and a big collision. Josh Doty's going to get by. Again, Jesse Coffey just having the absolute worst race. Unfortunate incident just leading into another unfortunate incident. He's up 2 from where he qualified. Did not have a great qualifying, but I'm sure that he wishes today has gone a little bit cleaner. And that is a slow car for Doty in front. Did he get a slowdown for something? It shouldn't be this close, so I'm not really sure what's keeping him close right now. Maybe a slowdown. Jesse Coffey's going to come into the pits. Right behind him, Mauricio Parada is going to do the same. And a very difficult pit lane is Parada kind of wheeling his way around that. And especially difficult in the dark. So if this had been a night wet race, that would have been just absolutely cruel. Tony Watson has broken under 10 seconds to Sheldon Rosenbaum. Roger Shank, the car in front that is not for position. Roger Shank is currently in 15th, so this is a lapped car. We'll have a blue flag, and he does let him by around the inside there. Easy enough move. Does lose a little bit of time, Tony Watson does, but Rosenbaum had to make his way past him as well, so it's only fair. And the GTPs, unfortunately, I don't really think there's going to be much of a story, unless there is an incident. Nicholas Paletti, 41 seconds back from Nick Terrell. John Kelly, 1 minute and 48 seconds back from Nick Paletti. He'll be happy about that podium with Paul Skip not finishing this race, but it would be a big ask to finish higher than that. Meanwhile, this was the incident. Actually, this was the incident that we had for Josh Doty. This was just through Corvette. So he just got by. And could have been a word. I mean, luckily with how red it is, I mean, everyone's going real slow. He hit the wall pretty gently. gets back going again, but that's why that gap closed down so much. And also Nicholas Paletti, who's already had a pretty insurmountable gap. Another Arnage incident. What is so difficult about Arnage for not just one class, but both classes of drivers here today? And Mauricio Parada, we just saw him coming to the pits. This was him. Through Dunlop. Now through the slowdown of Dunlop, and the car just, without having temperature in those tires, just completely stepped out on him. And there's a piece of car right on the track there that Tony Watson just went over. Could that have been maybe Mauricio Parada? It looks like he went off track again. Here he is, and it was a red piece through Tertre Rouge, just pushing that car too much on some new tires out here in the wet, and it may be towing to the pits here. We didn't see his car out there to the side. Yeah, Parada's in the pits. Travis Bell is in the pits. I think that's a normal stop. Hard to tell at this point. Oof. A lot of incidents here to keep up with. Travis Rowe with a small incident of his own. That is the same spot that we've seen a lot of. That's exactly where we saw Parada lose control of the car through the S of Tertre Rouge. And then Nathan Westland, actually that's the second incident. So Nathan Westland, first incident here. So he made his way through the Ford chicane, now through Recordement, and maybe a little similar to what Dan Burnett had at the start of the race. He's already actually missing the front of that car. May have been from a much earlier incident. And, oh yeah, that's just another view of that. Cody Height just having a couple incidents himself. You see what happened here. Looking in control with a pretty clean car through Indianapolis. Oh, that is a big wallop onto the wall. I mean, got him going straight immediately again. That's the only silver lining to that incident. And I think this is less commentating and more incident report right now. But that's what the race has to be with these difficult conditions. Just keeping your car on track is absolutely paramount. It's really just the few guys who are able to do that, who are going to be competing up at the very top. And Tony Watson right now is now down to 8.2 seconds. We're not even to the hour mark. We got 4 seconds before we hit that. But with 30 minutes to go, now brought it down to 8.2 seconds. I mean, we're just seeing it go down lap after lap. This is a wrong lap time history here. See here. See the gap between Watson and Rosenbaum every single lap over the last 5 faster for Watson. 1 second faster, 2 seconds, 2 seconds, 1 second, 1 second, and it's just continuing to stack up. Now he's brought it to sub 8 seconds. What a result it would be to see a Tony Watson win here. But Shelton Rosenbaum has the tools capable to hold off Tony Watson. Rosenbaum already a winner on the season, which that's a lot to say. In a season that's had Ken Huber dominate the standings and win nearly every single race, to have a win in this year where Eric Bellata got one at the very start, very fast driver. Tyler Langerberg got his own win at Road Atlanta, and then Sheldon Rosenbaum, the only other driver to earn a win this season, trying to get 2, but he has had an incident. Oh, and I'm right, when I praise him, and unfortunately the commentator curse in full effect here tonight. Look at that. That gap is now down to 1.6 seconds. Let's take a look real quick. You can see that's what happened. Just a very slow spin through the curves of Corvette, I believe. Now a 2-second gap between the two. Nick Terrell, not a perfect race that he's having here today. Was perfect maybe up to this point through the Porsche curve, and a nice save, but we'll pick up some incident points for that. Jesse Coffey makes his way past Cody Height, who's had a couple crashes, may not have had the pace to hold him off. Travis Rowe and Dan Burnett both going off track. We'll get back to that after we see if anything happens here. Tony Watson 1.5 seconds back. Don't think so. Travis Rowe's incident may have been pretty big here. Through Corvette as well, I believe. That is a big collision that he's got. 22 seconds off track after that, and immediately back to an off track for him. He toes to the pits. Travis Rowe was well up in the standings, and big loss that he has coming from that. Here was that second incident. Let's see if it's I just think maybe just frustrated he couldn't get back going straight again, or maybe the car wasn't driving right. Possible as well. Rowe falls back to 13th place, down 8 from where he started in 5th. Watson is up 18 spots and has that 19th spot right in front of him. This would be, I mean, we saw Nick Terrell go last to first a couple times in the GTPs, albeit with a smaller field, but man, to go last to first in this 20-man GT3 field, I don't think that has happened very often. I know Jay Smart technically did it as a legend earlier at Mugello, I believe, although he may not have actually even been dead last starting. Just maybe didn't put a qualifying lap in. But Tony Watson was relegated to the absolute last spot of this grid. And he is looking at a potential victory. Had such a clean race. Oh, and there's an incident ahead. Oh, okay. Not Sheldon Rosenbaum, but Josh Doty, who himself sitting in 11th place. Hopefully no collision there. Let's take a look at what that replay looks like. Through the exit, Sheldon Rosenbaum really catching up to him quickly. And no, just a loss of control by Doty. Does not impact the other drivers and loses your rear wing again. He goes to the pits. Nathan Westland exiting the pits. A lot of drivers sitting there in the pits. Oh no, and Tony Watson has had an incident. Right when he had the opportunity in front of him into the Molzon hairpin. So just go a little bit deep. This is what we saw from Paul Skip. I think he was gonna go deep. Tried to make the turn. That it could have been way worse. That's the best possible outcome for that kind of incident. There's still time, plenty of time, for him to make it up. But now back to 5 seconds. It's going to be difficult for him to claw back that unless he really just gets his mind right, has that focus again. It's not going to help the tire condition either. But it will allow Sheldon Rosenbaum to breathe a bit of a sigh of relief after he had his own incident, losing him even more time than that. So it happens to absolutely everybody. No one's going to finish with 0x in this race. I know I said that incidents are hard to pick up. That applies to it being a dry race. Clearly does not apply to here in a wet race. It's basically impossible. I don't know if anybody's going to really get much incident points-wise. But Travis Bell right now closing to sub 1 second to James Foreman. Again, Foreman having a valiant race. The only driver to make one pit stop for the race, and also, again, didn't put any wet practice time in. So to have this kind of performance here in some very challenging conditions is really impressive. Travis Bell is up 1, qualified in 7th, trying to make his way up here into 5th place. Would be just off of, I mean, not time-wise, but position-wise, would be just off the A-class podium. James Foreman is securely on it as long as he finishes the race. And Andrew McMurray is an entire minute ahead of James Foreman. So McMurray, who I think he was feeling a little bit hesitant, is Travis Bell. Wait to see if he gets by here. He's got a good run into Porsche. Is he going to make something happen? He's already ahead. Foreman not fighting that one. Tony Watson into the pit lane, and he actually made the move. Was that through the... Oh, yes. So technically got the move done. Oh, and actually that was an incident. It looked like, was that, yeah, it was Rosenbaum having an incident there right in front of him into the forward chicane. Hits that curb, not even really, pretty innocuous. And that is how technically Tony Watson overtook Rosenbaum, but he immediately came into the pits. Oh, and the difficult. Yeah, this is definitely, once Rosenbaum makes his pit stop, because he pit on lap 7, then Tony Watson's going to come out of this race in the lead with how much time he lost there, unless Watson himself has an issue, which we should watch him on board here, because we have seen some scary outlaps in these cars in these wet conditions. Still not looking good out there weather-wise. Still raining plenty hard. Luckily, these GT3s get a little bit more coverage with their windshield wipers than the GTPs do. Nick Terrell has made his pit stop. Watson, so gentle. You can hear on the gas, on the steering, so gentle through this first phase. just trying to get the tires in a working range. But there's still some time to go to get them warmed up. Again, we saw Parada lose a lot of time with a huge incident in Tertre Rouge. Let's see if he's able to navigate and cope with this corner here. Tertre Rouge well. I don't know if I'd get on those curves that much, but he does it. He keeps it smooth. He's through the hardest part. Now he can get some speed and maybe warm up the tires a little bit with some of that friction. Hitting the big braking zones into the 2 slowdowns will be helpful. But Nick Terrell is still waiting on Nicholas Paletti to come in for his second stop. So Paletti does inherit the lead for now. Will definitely fall behind after that point. And Tony Watson pitting and comes out in second place. So that just shows you the gaps that we've got. Only lost a single spot. Langenberg 10 seconds behind him. Langenberg his last pit stop, lap 10. I don't know if I think we did see him come in at about the 44-minute mark. So I think that he actually can make it to the end of this race. 10 seconds, though. Does he have the pace to catch up to Tony Watson, who will probably be the eventual leader after Rosenbaum makes his pit stop? But hard to tell. And Rosenbaum, he pit 3 laps before Langenberg. So he pit around the lap, or around time 32 minutes in or so. So an hour and 2 minutes not going to be, or 58 minutes, excuse me, not going to be possible in these cars. So we will see him come in again. 42-second is the advantage right now, but you lose a lot of time, not just in the pit stop, but through the pit lane here as well. Nick Terrell has had another incident. He just came out of the pits, and I think he's just lost 14 seconds. Unless I was reading that wrong. See what happens to him here is what we kind of saw happen to Josh Doty. And then this must not have been the 14. I must have been miscalculating from what it was before, but able to get going again. I may not have even earned any incident points there. It's so slow and so completely contained within the track that may not have even been counted as a 2X. Nathan Westland in for his third pit stop. We've had some drivers in for 5 pit stops in this race. And they're still in it, still in contention. However, for the GT3s, we are now down to where we're out, now 8 drivers. From Josh Doty in 13th back to Terry Kiger Jr. in 20th. And in the GTPs, from Paul Skippen 4th back to Ryan Jeevan in 7th. We have lost all those drivers with 20 minutes to go. Take another few minute break as we keep our eye on some action. But when we come to the end here, and Sheldon Rosenbaum coming in the pits, we will see where he comes out. Actually, let's take one moment to check the positioning here before we take that break. Now the drivers, again, a whole 26 to 30 seconds off of their dry. It wasn't even fully dry, but mostly dry running at the start of the race. You get a good time for the GT3s was a 4-minute 02 in qualifying, 4-minute 01. And yeah, now they're running in the 4:30s. Some of the drivers in the 40s. So it has not been an easy run for for these conditions. Not any tire changes. Rosenbaum coming in for that stop. Wait, is he going to be ahead? Did Watson take tires on that last stop? I may have misinterpreted. Oh, no, okay, but Watson definitely must have taken tires on that stop. Rosenbaum clearly did not. And that is going to give him the lead still, actually, the net lead by 4 seconds. Nicholas Paletti just had an incident. And right after this, we'll see Travis Rowe had his own incident. Just another spin kind of out of nowhere. Doesn't hit the wall. Travis Rowe right behind John Kelly here. I think coming up to Porsche. Yep, Indianapolis. Excuse me. So close to taking out John Kelly. Huge whack, and the engine's blown. He's going to be towing to the pits. Already kind of undid his race with his previous incident. But we will keep this battle on board, see where this goes. Right now, 4.4 seconds as we take a couple minutes break. All right, we're back, and the gap has not really dropped between these two guys, which has been interesting. So this last stint has really motivated Sheldon Rosenbaum here, who's running quite well and not losing any time to Tony Watson behind. If anything, just gaining a little bit. Not that graph really helps show that much. We can see here, looking through some of these sectors, just through the start of this lap so far, Watson faster through the first sector, but slower through the second sector by more. They now make their way through the first slowdown. and onto the Unondiere. This is luckily the one section of the track where you don't got to be too worried about the rain, and the maybe it was for some visibility, but not having an issue driving down the straight. Which if it were that wet, that would be an absolute disaster. It's still just like, it's crazy how it does not look that wet on the track outside of the drivers just kicking up so much spray. Certainly, you can see the rain coming down through the onboards. You really see it hitting the windshield, but not really any pooling anywhere. But Tony Watson lost a second through that second slowdown, and even more time for him to have to try to claw back down to just 12 minutes. This really actually maybe swinging back the direction of Sheldon Rosenbaum. Langenberg himself has caught up a little bit to Tony Watson. Is it enough? I don't know. I don't know if it's enough to be considered on pace to make that move, and it looks like it's kind of growing a little bit. But, oh, and actually, there we go. Never mind. Tony Watson maybe making a mistake in the Mulsanne hairpin. Lost another second to Rosenbaum and lost another second to Tyler Langenberg behind. He's just back there in our pictures. I'm not sure what's happening with Tony Watson. He's the one with the fresher tires, obviously. But the tire's not necessary to switch into, it looks like, for Sheldon Rosenbaum's sake. Maybe Rosenbaum being able to keep that temperature from the old tires, maybe that was actually even helpful. But the conditions not looking easier. It just, I think the driver's getting a little bit more used to it, and there's less drivers to have an incident next to or with right now. But Sheldon Rosenbaum is looking really strong now in what was looking like totally game over for him, especially after that spin in the Ford chicane. It is now completely, the script is completely flipped in his favor after that decision to not take tires. We'll see if it pays off here at the end. 10 minutes to go. Nick Paletti makes his way through, and Paletti 31 seconds back from Nick Terrell. So that is not going to happen, I think, unless Terrell just completely crashes out of this race. Not Tony Watson's favorite sight. Just a bunch of spray, making it just even more difficult to control the car. He's taking it carefully there through on the gas. Travis Rowe with another incident. Goes out a little bit wide in Indianapolis, and then Arnage, just the absolute bane of this entire field. I don't know what it is, but driver's just struggling so much to get it slowed down there. Gets back on track after the sand as Aaron Claybaugh makes his way through. I don't think that was for position. It was not. Oh, and as I look at that, Tony Watson's dropped down to sub 5 seconds. Maybe an incident for Rosenbaum there in those chicanes, just like we saw him have an incident in the Ford chicane. And then a little bit behind, Tyler Langenberg had a big off track. He, for some reason, the replay not popping up as something able to be drawn, but he's 17 seconds. He just lost 10 seconds to Tony Watson in what I saw just pop up for one moment. Now, surely must not have been any damage. Tony Watson now down to 3.7 seconds. I really don't know who this is supposed to be going towards. We're sub 10 minutes, almost down to sub 9 minutes to go. I'll try to keep an eye. So Terrell right now about halfway through the lap. The lap times for the GT3s are 3.5 minutes. And he's probably, close-ish to 2 minutes away. Maybe 2 more laps. It's going to be really close, I think, actually. I think it's going to be very close between 2 or 3 more laps. Obviously, Tony Watson will like more. It's down to a second. It's down to 1 second. Aaron Claybaugh with a crash. We'll make sure nothing happens in this braking zone between the two. Here's Aaron Claybaugh's incident. This is into the Ford chicane. Already stuck a little bit leery heading into that, and the curb not doing him any favors. Tony Watson he's already making the move. It was a second back. It was a second back into the turn. He must have had such a faster acceleration. Rosenbaum was looking so strong, and all of a sudden, again, it's totally flipped back. Tony Watson is making the move. Rosenbaum tried to move in front. Actually, Tony Watson backing out of this one, not trying to make it happen into this braking zone. Interesting. That really seemed like a prime opportunity. I mean, he's still got more chances, ideally, but that seemed like the time to try to take that lead. And I wonder if that curb right there is actually what was really upsetting a lot of the cars on the exit of the second slowdown on the Unodier, but not affecting either of those drivers. Wow, will Tony Watson regret not making that move? I mean, it's still a lot of time, but he really could have already been in the lead. Rosenbaum didn't really close him off that much, but didn't catch up there after that second go around through the slowdown. Good exit for both drivers. Check this real quick. Nicholas Paletti having another incident in what is a lost race for him. Through, hard to tell where that is. Is that Arnage again? I think that might be Arnage again. Yeah, I cannot, or that may have been the hairpin. Yes, because he is going through Arnage now. So that was the Molzon hairpin. But Tony Watson now dropped it back to a second. Does he wish that he had gotten in front? I mean, he's got time. He's got time. Half a second faster through the exit there. Really, really testing the limits in these scary conditions. He actually lost a little bit of time through there as he just went actually a little bit too wide. Travis Rowe technically getting around Roger Schenk. Roger Schenk has retired from the race, not from an incident that I see. Rowe moving his way into 11th now. Interesting to see, too, almost every driver left in this field is in a BMW or a Ferrari. They were already the most popular cars coming into the race, but the only two that are keeping it different are Tony Watson here in second in that Porsche and Tyler Langenberg in the Audi in third. So Terrell crossed the line already. There's 6 minutes to go. Man, I should have kept track of exactly when he crossed. It's looking more like one more lap after this one than it is two. But we'll have to see. We'll have to really keep our eye on that white flag for when Nick Terrell comes through. Rain coming down harder than it really has at any point. Through the Ford chicane. That was a cut chicane. That was a cut chicane for Rosenbaum. He is going to have to serve a slowdown for that. That surely was off track. He even got a little bit out of hand. And I think Tony Watson may be able to claim the lead here quite easily. Does he have the slowdown? Is he? It's hard to tell with the body language of exactly what he's doing. Even if he doesn't, it's still super close between the two. Is he trying to maybe burn it off competitively without losing the spot? I don't know if it really will be possible. But just maybe that was legal enough. I mean, my experience with that corner has typically been that gets you a slap on the wrist with a time penalty. But he'll still have some time to serve it. But now would be the best time rather than waiting until the Unodier, trying to get that draft back up. But yeah, maybe I just judged it wrong with the eyeballs there, and he actually was enough on track for that to count. So through Tertre Rouge, seemed like they were about equal last lap. A little bit wide for Tony Watson that time. Is he going to have a slowdown? That looked close to being legal at least. It was hard to tell from that angle. He's losing time on the straight. Is he trying to burn it off? He's lost like 2 tenths. May have just been a worse exit, but you would have thought that it would that time loss would start to stop there. So interesting here. I guess neither driver getting a time penalty. Sheldon Rosenbaum definitely would have already earned something at this point, if that were the case. We actually have the sectors there. Rosenbaum faster through the first 2 sectors, half a second, and then only 300ths, but still faster nonetheless. Nick Terrell making his way through the Curb de Golf into Indianapolis now. So approaching the final section of this course, we have 4.5 minutes to go. If he gets to the finish line in about a minute, he will add another lap essentially to this race. I'm guessing he doesn't. He's not going to be doing that. Watson had that opportunity to pass last lap into that second slowdown, was not nearly close enough that time. Man, I wonder if he'll be kicking himself with that perfect opportunity. Will he have another opportunity? He definitely can. He's had a couple close ones so far. Into the hairpin, he's kind of pull out just to get some clean air to break into, to view the track. But Rosenbaum has been driving so strong up front. Absolutely no errors. We saw a little bit of a squirm in the Ford chicane, but really clean nonetheless. We have an off track for Aaron Clabaugh. Nick Terrell is now coming to close to the end of the lap. I think that he's going to get the white flag. We now have the 3.5 minutes to go. So let's see if we can get a view. This comes through Maison Blanche. Oh, and the gap to Rosenbaum and Watson, 3 seconds. It may be over for Tony Watson. Now 4 seconds. He made a big mistake that we just caught off screen there. And now with just like 2 minutes remaining. Oh, 2.5. Yeah, excuse me. Yeah, so definitely white flag going to be coming on this lap for Nick Terrell. With just 2 laps to go, or 2 minutes to go, 1 lap to go. And Tony Watson's had a crash. Watson had just lost a couple seconds and into Arnage. What other corner could it possibly be? Exactly what we saw Tyler Langenberg have happen a couple times. Didn't hit the wall, but unfortunately, the chase for the win, I think, is over for Tony Watson. Rosenbaum just needs to keep it clean to the end. Nick Terrell does as well. The rain is actually starting to show up on track in puddles. So for the first time, we're starting to get that lighting showing it a little bit. Now it disappears somehow on screen. I think the accelerated time makes it a little bit goofy. But Terrell here has had a bit of a quiet race. Not scary race, that's for sure. But a quiet one in that he's kept his nose out of incidents. Only had a couple small little quarter spins, and it's kept him in the good. Paletti's still out there on track just in case something happens to Terrell. But I don't think that we're going to see anything. Rosenbaum himself has had an up-and-down race. He's coming into the final sector and will start his final lap here. You can hear how slow they are through this section. So gentle on the throttle. It's so different than it was at the start of the race. They continue to slow down. I mean, last lap 4:33 there for Sheldon Rosenbaum. Again, now 33 seconds off of their fastest times. Rosenbaum just needs to keep it clean. He doesn't need to be dramatically faster than Tony Watson behind. A 5-second advantage should be plenty for him. As he's had an up and down, he was close to the lead right at the very start, lost some time, got the lead, had a crash, lost the lead, got it back again. It's been a dramatic race in the GT3 field up and down, but for Sheldon Rosenbaum himself, no question, plenty of drama to accompany tonight, and the potential win that he might be able to pull out here if he just takes this last couple minutes at the Circuit de la Sarthe. Was that wide enough to get a slowdown, though? I mean, the slowdown's only going to cost him a few seconds. It was. You can see the time bleeding away to Tony Watson. What a terrible time to get a slowdown. How much time is he going to lose in actuality? He's lost a second. Maybe just a second. It looks like he's back up to speed. So a scary lapse there for Rosenbaum. Hopefully no more coming on this lap. Still some spots to be. Look at how early they hit the brakes. So slow coming down the gears. I don't know, 3.4 seconds to Tony Watson. I mean, it still is the case, I think, that Rosenbaum, as long as he stays mistake-free, he should be okay. That's a big maybe. But it's 3 seconds. That's a lot. I mean, there's the passing opportunities are not at the end of the lap, and that's really the big issue for Tony Watson, is that the classic places to get by are not coming up. They've already they're about to pass, and he's still a good amount back. So, ooh, boy, Nick Terrell though is coming up close to the end of this racetrack. Paletti has kept him honest by being out there, but no one has been able to compete with Terrell in this race. He doesn't have the best lap. Not that there were many opportunities to do that. There was really just one somewhat dry lap that we had. We switch over to Nick Terrell here. This is what the last part of the track looks like for him. He's coming around Maison Blanche. And he's going to be finishing out a wonderful race here. A scary race, a difficult race. And it looks like, I think there was an incident right in front of him there of Dan Barnett through the Ford chicane. There is, yeah, sure enough, through Ricordomont chicane. And Nick Terrell is going to take it to the line as the winner of the first fully wet Endurance for Amateurs race, and very well places himself in the prime seat for the championship in just next week for the finale. As we switch now, though, to Tony Watson trying to catch up. He's brought it down to 1.3 seconds. This has been a massive charge here at the end of the lap. I don't know if it's enough. We're coming up to just the last little bit. They're making the way through Arnage. This is where Tony Watson had the issue last time. He makes his way through cleanly this time. Whoa, 1.2 seconds. The last real passing opportunity is into maybe Porsche. He's not going to be able to do it here. He needs a mistake from Sheldon Rosenbaum in front. Rosenbaum is running well up there in the front. He has not made any major mistakes. He's kept it clean, kept it on the track, which is the most important thing he can do through the Porsche curve. We've seen so many drivers struggle through that section. Now left through Pont. We've seen drivers struggle through there as well. Finishes that out. Now through Karting. I think he's going to be safe as long as he gets to the final chicanes with no slowdowns. Now through Corvette of the left. Sheldon Rosenbaum just needs a couple more corners to seal this away. Watson's car is looming in the background. Maison Blanche finishing it out. Just two more chicanes. Now through the Ford chicane, hitting the braking zone. Watson is too far away. 1.4 seconds back. Rosenbaum through Ford. If he can survive the curbs. Oh, and the car gets a little bit squirrely through Ricordomont. Can he make it to the line? He can. Sheldon Rosenbaum is going to be the victor for tonight's E4A race. What a incredible win for him. And Tony Watson, a great story. See, finishing there in second, up 18 spots. Couldn't quite get that last position. Tyler Langenberg, the second place man in the championship, gets third as the final podium spot. Andrew McMurray, we go on board with him here. He is making his way through the Porsche curve. He has no threat behind in the B class. He should get win number 2 here tonight. Interlagos last week on debut, where he made up tons of positions, and it wasn't even at the start of the race. And today he's made up 10 positions to make his way to 4th overall and 1st for the B class. And a great win, a little bit of a beat-up car, but whose car hasn't been beat up today. Makes his way through Ricordomont, and Andrew McMurray, 2 races and 2 victories. Wonderful performance for him here today. Travis Bell finishing right behind in 4th place for A class, 5th place overall. A couple more drivers still to cross the line. James Foreman coming across now through the Ford chicane. And again, wonderful race for him. Only driver who was able to do this race on 1 pit stop. Actually, Tyler Langenberg did as well with his stop. They made it the 44-minute mark. So excuse me for that, but both his, at least his driver, or his stop was a little more scheduled. Foreman able to get it done in that wonderful-looking Ferrari. John Kelly comes across the line, is going to be earning a podium position here tonight. And a great podium for him. This is actually his first podium on the season for GTP. Has kind of been always the bridesmaid, never the bride. But here on the podium as another driver to hit that. Aaron Claybaugh, the last driver to come across the line. He's got a good amount to go through here. He's got a lot of solo broadcast time here. But that is driver number 10 in the GTP class, believe it or not, to earn a podium. He matches Terry Carter Jr., Dennis Diaz, Troy Banks, Ryan Jeevan, and Jack Colville all at 1 podium on the season. Few more corners for Claybaugh to contend with here. 7th place, down 3, but was a very good qualifying effort. A better result than he had last week, where we saw him qualify so well, then unfortunately just have some early race incidents. But a 7th place, good recovery. Scary curb there as the rain has just continued to intensify. I imagine if I look at the forecast, it probably just looks like it's going to continue to get even worse. Aaron Claybaugh through the final couple chicanes, through Ford, and he knows he's knows he's on screen. Is he going to go in reverse? He is. He's going to take it across the line in style as the last man on track. reversing across the finish line at some pretty good speed, if I do say so. Aaron Claybaugh crosses in 7th place. What a show to finish that off. Let us pull up our results for tonight. In GTP, Nick Terrell takes another win, only win number 3 on the season for the championship leader coming into tonight. Nicholas Paletti in 2nd with podium number 16, and John Kelly with his first podium on the season. Paul Skip, unfortunately, coming in 4th after a crash. Paul Boyle in 5th, and Jay Smart with 6th. Ryan Jeevan rounding out the field in 7th place. In GTD, Sheldon Rosenbaum, a dramatic, exciting win to earn his 2nd win on the season. Tony Watson with his first podium in 2nd place, and Tyler Langenberg with his 8th podium there in 3rd. Andrew McMurray gets his 2nd win in as many races, with Travis Bell in 5th, James Foreman with podium number 15 for the B class, Aaron Claybaugh in 7th, and Dan Barnett with his first podium on the season as well. Nathan Weston and Jesse Coffey round out the top 10. Following them, Travis Rowe, Roger Schenk, Cody Height on debut, Josh Doty, Mauricio Parada, Todd Schneider, Ken Huber, Greg Holland, Jack Lucas, and Terry Calgary Jr. Let's go to our waiting room. We have some of our drivers. Let's bring in Nick Terrell, our leader for the GTPs. Nick, you got me in the booth here.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
This was, to say an eventful race would be underselling it to a pretty massive degree. However, I only think I saw one spin from you in the rain. How much wet practice did you do coming into the night?
Zilch.
Didn't I don't know how you saw. What was the experience? I mean, you could tell when you were doing some of those onboards that everybody between both classes, but especially those GTPs, every corner, I mean, you're giving it like half throttle. You're so gentle on the steering. You know, what was the way to cope through the corners as the rain just continued to intensify?
Yeah, that SSR, whatever that setting is, at least let you be able to see the puddles and stuff. That was mainly what I was looking at, was just trying to spot where the puddles were in the racing line, and I just knew I needed to avoid the racing line as much as possible. Some of those turns, I guess like Arnage and stuff, it's unavoidable pretty much, and that's where I spun once, and I had another spin coming out of the second chicane on fresh tires. Just glad no one collected me behind me. The GT3s were very mindful that Acura, it takes a bit to get its momentum up in first gear, so it's like you're sitting there like, come on, oh, there's the boost, okay, and then you got to like short shift and kind of baby the throttle a little, because it wants to try to kill you once it starts building up the RPM range. And yeah, I was glad to see that white flag with like 2 minutes and something remaining. I'm like, please don't make me have to do another lap.
Yeah, that actually answered a question I had, where Arnage was just such a difficult section for every driver, and that answers part of the mystery there. I also wanted to know what was because I don't have any way with the broadcast currently to see what type of tires everybody's on. So what was the tire strategy for today for you?
It seemed like everyone in GTP started off on the dries. I was just kind of watching the state of the track, and once I got a little squirrely and coming into Porsche corners or Porsche curves, like I think 2 laps before Nick and Skip came in the pit, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna bin in it if I like keep trying to send it into some of these turns like I have been, and instead of just pussyfooting it around a little, I was like, I'm just gonna bite the bullet. I know I've done the minimum number of laps I wanted to do on my splash stint, because I'd already done a little bit of math early on with the dry, knowing I could potentially run. I had like 2 or 3 different strategies in mind as far as fuel if it was going to stay dry, but 6 would be like the largest short stint, I guess I should say, that I was going to have in mind on any of my stints. So once I saw I'd completed the 6 laps there, I knew I was in the window to go ahead and come in on wets. I hedged my bet that it was going to keep on raining. We didn't really have any good accurate forecasting inside of the sim. If it'd say like 0% rain, or 0% rain, you would click the ask for status, and it'd say it's gonna be clearing up soon. Meanwhile, my wipers were still on, rain was still coming down. So I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna run wets to the end, because I know just from experience, like not in testing or anything for this, but just in general, even with a boatload of cars going, it's going to take probably half an hour or so before even just the racing line gets dried out.
Now, coming into this race, you had that 4-point advantage. Would have been tied if you and Paul Skip had actually matched on the safety points last race. He had 13 incidents, didn't get any, so that was a big change in momentum in the championship. Now with the victory here today, I don't know how many incident points you had. I know everybody certainly had a good share.
Yeah, I only had 5. So I
There we
got 4
go. So
minutes.
some points coming on the
Yeah,
board.
yeah.
What are you looking
Yeah, I was a
forward
little
to?
aggravated. I was trying for a 0, but yeah, the rain was not gonna
Yeah.
let that happen. Props to Kelly though, John Kelly for 4X, man. I was really glad to see him with that.
Yeah, and first podium on the season for him as well.
Yeah, P3 with a 4X for him, like the safest GTP. I mean, feather in his cap.
Well, you had the win today. You got some bonus points. You already had a 4-point lead. Heading into Watkins Glen next week, you're looking in a pretty good spot for a championship here today. What's the mindset? What's the game plan heading into that Watkins Glen championship race?
Just to keep it clean, like I've been trying to do all season. To harvest the bonus points if at all possible. I'll look and see what the point spread is and drop weeks and all that. Kind of know what sort of position I need to keep in mind. But it might be one of those times when I'll be hoping for maybe only 3 or 4 GTPs to show up next week, just because it'll kind of guarantee some positions. But we'll see how many show up and what can happen. The good thing is Glen's one of my favorite tracks. Uh, 3 years ago, I won with the C8R and the 6 hour there. The year after that, I won with LMP2, and then last year got second with the Cadillac. So try to see if I can keep that momentum going and close this long, grueling season out. And I feel like tonight kind of made up for my computer issues I had at Road Atlanta, and at least let me get a win back that I felt like I kind of robbed myself of.
Yeah, there's so many memories of the season, easy to think back on. Congratulations on this victory here today, and we look forward to hearing from you maybe next week at Watkins Glen. Have a good night, Nick.
Thanks, Zach. Thanks for the broadcast. Looking forward to checking it out tomorrow.
There we go. As our winner, Nick Terrell. We got our GTD B winner, Sheldon Rosenbaum, or A winner, excuse me, Sheldon Rosenbaum. Bring him in. Sheldon, you got me in the booth.
Yeah. How's it going?
Oh, man, I mean, a little bit out of breath. What an exciting race to follow, start to finish. And that explained your race as well. I mean, at the start of the race, you were really close in that 4-pack of drivers all competing for the lead. Ended up losing out to them a little bit. Got the lead. Then you got into a spin. You had a crash with Paul Skip. Then you got the lead back, and then you lost it, and then you didn't take tires, so you got the lead again, and then you still had to fight for it on the final lap, crossing with like a second. I mean, just what was that race like for you today?
Yeah, it was nuts. I had no idea I was going to get anywhere close to the front. And then I took tires, the rain tires, and it helped a little bit. And then I crashed, and then I went back in and took fuel and got some repairs, and I didn't take tires again, and they were pretty much wore out at the end.
Now, yeah, that was my question was with that last pit stop, was the decision to not take tires, were you already planning that, or was that exclusively because you knew that because you had that spin right when Tony Watson went in for his last pit stop where he did take some tires. You had that spin there at the Ford chicane. At that point, were you like, I'm not taking tires, I need to not lose time in the pit stop?
Exactly. I knew if I took tires that Tony was going to get in front of me, and I don't think I could have ever got back around him. But he was catching me fast there at the end because I had nothing left.
What was the experience with the rain? I mean, we had little sprinkling a couple weeks ago. We had a scare that didn't have any rain come 1 week ago, but this was truly wet, and it started on lap 1 and continued even intensifying until the end of the race. You know, what was the kind of different kind of way that you had to drive the car as opposed to the rest of the season?
Well, it was very difficult, and you had to really watch out for the curbing. You could get on any painted surfaces, and then it was ponding by the curbs, and that's what got me a couple times. I'd hit that pond, and it would just spin me around.
Now, you're the only driver other than Ken Huber now to have multiple wins on the season. So congratulations already on that. But heading into next week, we got Watkins Glen. And you know, obviously you didn't start the season, so you had a lot of missed races, unfortunately. started, I think, with Mugello. I think was the first race that we had. You podiumed on your debut, but now you've made your way up to 14th overall, and that includes the B-class drivers. With still maybe a couple spots to gain, how do you see yourself faring next week for the finale at Watkins Glen?
I do fairly well at Watkins Glen, but if I can get a podium, I'll be happy.
Well, that was an ultra exciting race there for you at the end. Congratulations on that victory, really duking that one out with Tony Watson. And we look forward to maybe hearing from you again next week at the Glen.
All right. Thanks, Zach.
Have a good night, Sheldon. That was our GTDA winner. Now we're going to bring in our GTDB winner, Andrew McMurray. Second win in 2 races. Andrew, you got me in the booth.
Hey, Zach, how are you?
Doing good. You've got 2 wins in as many races. And I know you were feeling a little bit hesitant last week. Still, I mean, you had to climb up a lot of positions. I think you finished up 10. You qualified, I think, 14th. Made your way up to 4th overall and first for the B class. What was your game plan for the start of the race? It probably started raining earlier than everyone expected.
Yeah, I had no idea that there was a possibility of rain. To be honest, I dropped into the practice for about, I think, the last 5 minutes, and then just kind of used the same strategy as last week. I was just kind of going to let the field kind of dictate the pace and kind of go there, and then the rain started. So at that point, things had kind of stretched out, and it's such a long lap that conditions were changing lap to lap. I think I came in at a good point to switch to the wets and managed to keep it on the island. I had a couple of Baja moments at the last 30 minutes, but managed to keep it in there, I guess.
Yeah, it did seem, I mean, I can't think of many. I don't know if anybody had a totally clean race. I can't think of many incidents that you had. There were definitely drivers out there struggling more. What was, especially as the track started to evolve and puddling started to happen some more in some parts of the track, what did you find as like, the best tactic to just keep it on track?
In the, I don't know, about the 1 hour mark, it was probably the track, even though it was wet, it was probably at its best. And then it started to get a little bit deteriorating again. And you really had to tell yourself down those long straights just to like ease up going in, back off. There's no need to push. I really wasn't close to anybody while I was racing. So it was more of a mental game the whole way.
Now, of course, this being the first race that was like actually wet, did you put a lot of time into practicing in the wet for this race? I mean, I think the forecast still only showed like a 40% chance of rain.
0. The last time I turned a wheel was when I talked to you last week.
That sounds like my kind of practice regime.
Yeah. Hey, congrats. I guess this is the end of the season. Congrats to all the champs who have racked up a championship today. So that's pretty cool for those guys.
One more. We got one more.
Oh, there's still one more.
Yeah.
All right.
Don't mislead the audience. One more next week.
I thought today was the end.
No, we still got one more. Watkins Glen as the finale of this 20-race giant mega season.
Awesome. Well, I'll try and hit that one up too if I can.
Well, we congratulations here on the victory here today. Again, 2 in 2 weeks. Impressive little showing here at the very end. And then look forward to maybe seeing you for 3rd and 3 next week at the Glen.
Thanks, Zach. Take care.
Have a good night, Andrew. That was our victor for GTDB, Andrew McMurray. What an incredible rainy race that we had. I think it probably exceeded my expectations for chaos. And it could have been even more wet, really. I mean, you can see in these pictures in the background, really now we're starting to get the heavy pooling starting to happen on this track. So, again, look for us next week, Watkins Glen, exact same time. We'll get our championships wrapped up. I do believe Ken Huber definitely does, but I do believe James Foreman already has his championship locked up, especially with a quality performance here tonight. But we still have that ultra-important GTP championship to sort out. Nick Terrell leading both into the race tonight and winning the race here today should put him in a good position, but it is never over. So again, if you're here for the E4A, exact same time next week for Watkins Glen for the finale. And everyone, have a good night.